One final race. It's all on the line here today at the Circuit Park Zandvoort. It's just 4 points in it at the moment, and anything that is possible can happen and normally does when it comes to sim racing. The eFormula series goes right down to the wire tonight, today, wherever you may be in the world. This is Circuit Park Zandvoort. Get yourself ready for the action on the Esports Broadcasting Network. My name's Jake Sperry. I'm joined alongside here by Frank Marchese here for action brought to you here at this wonderful circuit in and amongst the Dutch dunes on the very, very coast of the Netherlands. And this is going to be a tough challenge for these drivers today. Not only is this a difficult overtaking circuit, Frank, but this is also one of those circuits where you really do need to be pretty much alert through every single section of the track, including on the straights.
I was never much of a fan of this circuit until I got my hands on F1 2020 and I fell in love with this circuit. Now, it is a little bit different from that game into this sim. This is still the older version. This one hasn't been paved. That final corner doesn't have that big banking to help, but you're 100% right. This is a place where you have to be inch perfect at every single part of this racetrack. There are a couple of long straights that give you a chance to relax, but especially that second sector, it is very tight, very technical, where you can carry a lot of speed and you can either kill or make your lap time gold.
And it's such a notoriously difficult circuit. Just look around this place. There is no runoff area here that really gives you any chance to recover. This isn't a Tilkedrome, so to speak. You have to be on your game, and one small mistake will definitely punish those who are looking for it. We are in the latter stages of practice at the moment, but let's talk championship standings at this stage. 2 drop rounds applied here to these drivers in this field, and it's very clear who finds themselves where, because this is Lubomir Moric on top of the timing stands, on top of the driver standings, I should say. Timing stands is 3rd place right now, but that gap is only 4 points to the Radicals Online track racer machine, piloted by Paul Ilbrink. What does that mean, Frank, in terms of the championship? Well, if Lubomir Moric wins, that's it. Championship is his. If it's second and Paul Ilbrink finds victory, then we go down to a tie-break, which Paul Ilbrink takes by the matter of fact that he's won more this season.
Yeah, and again, we were expecting, coming out of Brazil a couple of weeks ago, we were expecting Ilbrink to have the points lead, but those drop weeks came into effect, and the reason why Moric gets the advantage on the drop weeks is because Moric had missed a race. So he's essentially cutting out a did not start, which is able to put him up 4 points clear. And you're right, it is a must-win situation, or at least Ilbrink cannot win this race if Moric wants to take home the championship.
And ironically, it's the exact same race that they both cut out of their calendar, so to speak, at Long Beach, USA, which was the real turning point in terms of that championship. Eyes on the team standings, 225 to 193. Radicals Online Track Racer find themselves in the best possible position right now because they have the easiest job out of anybody here in terms of how they go and win their team's championship. They only need 3 points. Very easy when you're up there at the moment, 1-2 at the end of practice.
And that's 3 points with both positive sim drivers finishing first and second. So it's not a mathematical lock, but it's basically a lock for Radicals. They're going to win their second team championship in a row here tonight, barring a catastrophic event.
And, of course, a catastrophic event is the last thing that they want to focus on. One championship, though, is already decided and in the book. That is for IM Kieman here in the privateer standings, 59 points to 38. Doesn't seem like much, but you have to remember that Omar Bahar has pulled out of the series and pulled out very early on in the championship, so will not be scoring points. Nathan Brumby too far behind in 3rd place. So those points, they cannot be altered. IM Kieman is your privateers champion and someone who I think really could work well in a team, just getting himself up to another level and getting a little bit more expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's the consistency that he needs, and he's here tonight, but there have been points during the season where he has not been here and he has not shown up, and he's had incredibly quick race cars all season long, was great at Long Beach, had a great run at Road America as well before he ended up in his accident. So if he can just find that consistency, if he can just find that pace and be able to keep it up there, Keeman could be a force to be reckoned with in this series.
Certainly could. So we will see how that one works out then as they all get themselves situated with this track. Track temperature 25 degrees here in the midday. It's going to be a cooler track, which gives a lot of room and opportunities to go out there and make things happen. We're going to see a lot of quick lap times coming in. Danny Herkstra, though, riding around with the Tulip Racing car. Of course, the Tulip Racing team paying the tribute, or going straight on actually at that point, but are paying tribute to Sabine Schmidt, who, of course, those who know from Top Gear, most and foremost, I would say, as the queen of the Nürburgring. Of course, she lost her battle with cancer earlier on in the week, and of course, they pay their respects to her. But ultimately, this is going to be all about battling at this stage. Get a good lap in early. You've got 15 minutes of qualification, and you're allowed to finish that lap. So make sure that you get your lap down in on the board, and then you've got that case of adjusting and seeing if you can find a 10th here or there.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see Lubomir Moric on screen right now, coming into one of the more difficult sections of this racetrack, that crest up the hill, and then it's a heavy braking zone into two very slow corners, that first one being incredibly tight. Moric going purple in that sector, though, so he's on a quick lap. Javier Torres as well, who's just behind him, on a very quick lap as well in the 35.
He certainly is. So Torres has always been good at getting a lap in early on the board. Moric sets a 21.7, which is by far and away quicker than what anyone has done in practice. A full 7/10 of a second quicker, and is 9/10 clear of Javier Torres, who puts a 22.6 down on the board. Matt Quinn going third on a 23.3. But this is a circuit which is very compact, very quick, but very easy as well to bleed the time.
It absolutely is, because this track is so tight, it's very, very easy to make a mistake, as we see Manuel Hoyer about to complete his lap. There are so many technical corners on this racetrack. A lot of them, especially in the second sector, you have to take with speed if you want to be quick here, which obviously increases the chances of making a mistake as Hoyer goes to P2. This is not an easy racetrack to get around, but once you nail it, it is so much fun.
It certainly is, and this is where you start seeing how everyone really works for these results, these abilities to go out there and find the times that are up there on the board. It's easy to be complacent in qualifying. Ilbrink to the top, of course, on a 21.6. Now puts himself in the prime position. You got Hoyer there in third on a 22.1. On a 22.3, Manuel Domingo in fourth position. So the main players of the game, Radicals and, of course, Positive Sim Racing, both of who have been right up there all season long as the two teams to beat, are once again 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's like one of those legendary Formula One rivalries that you used to see, like McLaren versus Ferrari or Mercedes versus Red Bull. It's that sort of battle that we see right now.
It's certainly nice to see, isn't it? Especially when you have all of the title contenders as close as they are. Ilbrink and Moric right now. Moric does need to find a little bit of pace. He's currently going to lose the championship if this were to stay the way it is right now. Moric were to lose the championship right now, as I believe he had one of the Rebellion cars go off ahead of him. Domingo, however, is on a personal best going through the final couple of corners.
Yes, so Manuel Domingo hoping to improve. He's 7/10 of a second down on his teammate, which is always demoralising when you're that far down after just one lap on the board, and crosses for a 22.5. So the lap fell away in the final stages, and that time drops a little bit down the order. You've still got Torres in fifth, Dave Guild is in sixth position, and then it's I.M. Keeman here in seventh. But Dave Guild does improve and jumps up into fourth position, throws it in the wall, and actually sticks the landing as well, jamming it there at the end of the Armco barrier. So up to fourth position, 22.206. Every reason to be excited about that, because he makes life very difficult for those who want to be those wingmen to Ilbrink and Moric.
It certainly does, and Moric on that last lap setting the best Sector 3 and Sector 4 times. 6 sectors on this racetrack here. Very windy course, very long course, but these cars certainly make it up quick is Mark Ponick, who currently sits with the slowest lap time of drivers who have taken time. 14 drivers here today. And Ponick will jump up, I believe, to 10th position.
Yep, 1:23.459, so a good enough time then to find those improvements out on circuit. But this is one where everyone's going to be trying to put those times in as early as they can. The top two are 0.4 of a second clear of anybody else out there at the moment. That's going to be crucial to keep in mind as Domingo jumps back up 22.184, moves back into 4th position. So reason to be excited with that sort of lap time. But again, he's still a half a tenth short of Manuel Hoyer. And when you've got 2 drivers behind wanting to get through the same team instead of 1, when it comes to these races, that will make things doubly difficult.
Yep, and Moric just goes fastest of all with a 1:21.637, fastest of all in Sector 4 as well. So Moric has got the hammer down. He is absolutely flying right now. Matt Quinn crossed the line, jumps up into 8th. Dave Guild coming across the line now from 5th. He will stay there.
Certainly will. So he will try and find those improvements as much as possible. Staying in 5th is Guild, but Hoekstra up then into 6th position and trying to move on up and move on forward. It's very easy in terms of this sort of qualifying session to be lulled into a false sense of security. Hoekstra has gone even quicker, has gone up to 3rd. Big help from the toe in the final sector by Marcellus Bruning there. So Danny Hoekstra jumping up the order then puts himself only 0.3 behind Moric and Ilbrink.
Domingo Purple in Sector 5 goes up to 3rd. Hoyer Purple in Sector 3 is currently sitting in 5th position right now. Coming into the final bit of racetrack, and he's on a flyer. He is green in every sector, purple in Sector 3. This is going to be a pole contending lap here.
It is, and this is where we're going to see those times coming through, and every single lap becomes a battle. We've got Domingo down in the pits. Hoyer gets close, but he's down still 1/10 of a second on Lubomir Moric, his own teammate, but the 74 makes it a very nice positive sim racing sandwich with a Radical Online filling at the halfway mark and just over here in qualifying. So 7 minutes is all that's left to separate these drivers out there on track, and they are all up at a very, very strong level. Ilbrink needs just 0.02 of a second to move back to pole position at a track where track position is king.
Yep, it is. And because it's not just because it's windy, which typically a windy racetrack would mean overtaking opportunities. But as you could see, we just saw an onboard shot of Mark Ponick completing his lap. This is a very narrow track, which is going to make overtaking darn near impossible here. So yeah, Moric right now has really got the upper hand on Ilbrink, even though it is Ilbrink's home track.
It is Ilbrink's home track, but it's the key here for Paul Ilbrink. It's virtual home soil, not necessarily just home soil. Another 1x incident point on that lap, so will not be able to put that one in the right position. And all these drivers are searching the limits. I've seen Ian Keeman over the course of qualifying put it in the wall. I have seen the likes, of course, of Dave Guild find the walls on the outside. It's very easy to run into troubles. You also have to remember there are going to be drivers up and down the order who will be looking for time. Someone who hasn't set a time, hasn't even gone out on track yet, Leonardo Fabian.
Yeah, he's the only driver as we're riding on board with Paul Ilbrink right now, and you can just see the elevation change as well. That's going to be another factor in this race, how much you have to push this sector here, middle sector. Very fast corners, slowing right down. This one very slow, very long, but it has a very wide exit. You're going to come up, you're going to crest this hill, and just about as you crest the hill, right when you get to the rumble strips there on the left, hard on the brakes, down to second gear, roll the car through a very long and tight corner. Then this is the fast bit down here, and this corner here, new on the new layout of this circuit, it's banked, it's quite wide. This on this version, as Ilbrink goes to the top with a 21.548, not a bad lap to be riding on board.
Not a bad lap at all. And this is what Paul Ilbrink does so very well. He just sees the bar and he just tips over the top of it and says, I'm leaving a little bit more in the tank if needs be, but I'll just push the bar over. It's almost like, say, when you're watching a high jump competition or, say, a pole vault competition, and you see someone raise the bar by 1 centimeter, even though they can jump 10, because they want that world record money. It's very similar to what Paul Ilbrink's doing right now, because he wants pole position, but he wants it in a certain way. Hoyer did also improve on his last lap, but could not gain place. And this is where it starts to get interesting here, because you've got the top 8 drivers split by 0.7 of a second.
Yeah, this is incredibly close as we're looking back at Ilbrink right now. Is Ilbrink not just quickest of all, but sets a new personal best in sectors 2 and 3 on that lap. Hoyer goes purple in sector 3. Ilbrink again, personal best in sector 5. This one could be a little bit better depending upon how close sectors 1 and 4 were. He'll come across the line, and that will be, just off.
Ever so slightly. That's the fine margins. Manuel Hoyer coming out of Ari Lurendijk corner, of course, the Indy 500 winner. And now here he comes for the line as he looks to try and improve even further. No, it's 21.9, so that one definitely not working as he drives it into Tarzan, turn number 1. Out on circuit. So there are still those times which are going to be in on the board. What about Lubomir Moric then? Has about 2 minutes to figure it out. That's a 21.7. Not good enough, but trying to gear up. And of course, you've got Manuel Domingo as well in the number 9 Radicals Online track racer machine, who is down at the moment by 0.4. Well, he's now down by 0.3. He's jumped over Danny Hoekstra 1, 2, 3, and 4. Once again, it's now a very big double stack sandwich here of Radicals Online.
And Danny Hoekstra right now is on track just behind the 9 of Domingo as we see Ilbrink trying to set another time. Oh yeah, Hoekstra goes up to P3. Good lap for the 91.
121.672. It splits up the positive sim racing drivers and puts them absolutely in a great position. Danny Hoekstra has been getting better and better when it has come to qualifying laps, and this is what is putting him at such a great position in these championship hunts. He is so close to getting to his victory as Lubomir Moric goes for a spin then down at the Hans Ernst corner there. So the Hans Ernst corner, of course, is the 10 and 11 on track, formerly the Audi S. So more to come along with that battle that brings itself into play. So we still got, though, 50 seconds. Moric will go no quicker than second position, so it'll be up to teammates now if they want to get themselves forward. It'll be up to the rest of the field to see if they push forward with their times. Manuel Hoyer should get one more lap in on the books. Domingo coming to the line does not improve, but has one more lap.
Yep, here comes Hoyer. Is going to be the first one to cross the line. Ilbrink is slower than his personal best in every sector he's run so far, so it's going to be a doubtful lap for him. But Hoyer coming through that final corner, and I saw something with Hoyer's last time through going onto the straightaway. He did dip the left rear into that grass and really upset the back end of that Formula Renault. So that could be something to watch out for later on in this race as Hoyer does not improve his time. Ilbrink just dives off into the pits, and now it's on Domingo, at least, of the top 4 drivers.
Checkered flag is out. Mark Ponick to the line then. 22.8 does improve. Jumps to 10th position then with that qualifying lap time. The next driver out on track is Manuel Domingo, and it's going to be Domingo or Hoyer who is out there who can improve on their lap time. So Domingo through the final sector then, through the Hans Ernst corner, but he gets it all wrong then as he goes through. He took a very, very aggressive line in, and he had no turn in for the subsequent left-hand bend, and that is trouble. And then also off the circuit then is going to be Manuel Hoyer, who could not find improvements. So that is qualifying all wrapped up nicely with a neat bow. It will be Paul Ilbrink then on pole position as he looks to try and pick up a win, and he is primed and ready. 121.548. He's got his main title rival alongside him on the front row in Lubomir Moric, with Danny Hoekstra in 3rd position and Manuel Hoyer there in 4th. Manuel Domingo starts in 5th position with I.M. Keeman then in 6th with Dave Guild and Javier Torres 7th and 8th places. Matt Quinn then starts 9th with Mark Ponick rounding out the top 10. Following that, you've got Boozy, Bruning, Browning, and then you've also got Leonardo Fabian, who makes the 14 drivers who will be taking to the start of this race. And of course, one pit stop required, and it's something we haven't talked about so far today, Frank. That pit lane has very big shades of Alton Park in the sense that it is so narrow, it is one line suits all. The moment you get it wrong, that's it. You've got yourself an Austin Powers.
Yeah, and it's also, I believe, Zolder is the same way, where it's a very tight entry into pit road, so you do have to be inch perfect quite literally everywhere around this racetrack.
And that does include the pit lane. So they'll be moving over to the race session in just a couple moments. They've got an hour and 5 minutes of race time should they need it. It's a 42-lap distanced race, so it'll be 42 laps or an hour and 5 minutes, whichever comes first, as they will line themselves up then onto the starting grid. Moric immediately out there on track. Winds blustering in from the south at 14 kilometers an hour, an average wind here today at Zandvoort, with this wonderful circuit playing host to the final round. And how do you attack the first couple of corners from Tarzan to Gerlach to the Hugenholz at turn number 3 are all going to be absolutely massive. The Audi, what there was formerly the Audi S, the Hans Ernst corner, is going to be a huge place where we're going to see those overtakes happen. And then you've got to try and work out those final 2 corners, the Kumo corner into Ari Lurendijk, and how that one is going to end up in this race. So, work to be done. Who finds what they need out there on circuit? They have a minute to figure things out. And Frank, you know, this is where nerves come in. This is a title race, and there are no take-backs or mulligans.
I am in no way insinuating that this is going to happen, nor am I insinuating that Moric is that kind of driver. But we're in a very similar championship situation to what happened with Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost at Suzuka. Turn 1, it's a tight corner just the same way Suzuka is. It's an opportunity if that's the way he wants to take it.
Gravel on the outside as well, so we'll see how they drive. I'm sure these two want a fair fight between them as they figure things out. It's the racing line as well for the Radicals cars. They will have the advantage on the power. Everyone then gets themselves pretty much ready, just waiting for one more. Mark Ponick, who gets himself up on the grid. Everyone is situated. Let's get ourselves ready then. 42 laps of Zandvoort. It's the season finale here of your eFormula Series Season 2. It starts now, and the green and the go, and it's not a good start there by Paul Ilbrink, but Hoekstra was absolutely sensational there. But he's got nowhere to go immediately off this start, so they've run themselves into the back Tarzan corner. Ilbrink takes the big wide line, trying to go through, has to be careful on the exit. He's through cleanly, and Hoyer on the inside then, as they head up to Gerlach, and then turn 2, has to lift out of it with Hoekstra, and it's side by side then with Manuel Domingo, who gets down the inside, spins it into the wall, both of the wingmen out of this race.
Yeah, and that's Hoyer as well. They're both missing, and this is part of the problem with this circuit is it's such a tight racetrack that if one thing happens, it log jams the entire racetrack, and you can see both Hoyer and Domingo, as you said, both wingmen now going to be out of this race.
They certainly are. There are no fast repairs here in this race. They know they've got to be on a fine wire because they've got 10 instant points before drive-through penalties become a reality. Through turns 8 and 9, the leaders go. It is going to be Ilbrink from Moric, from Hoekstra, from I.M. Keeman, who's jumped up to 4th. Guild is in 5th. Boozy now up into 6th position after the huge bottleneck at the Hugenholz and through Hans Ernst for the first time. Then they come along. It's a case to be made for Paul Ilbrink. This is a track which favours the driver in front. He has to run, and run away.
It's his home racetrack, a home racetrack for both the drivers in P1 and in P3 as well. And now that there's a 4-car breakaway up at the front, Moric does need to really get on it here. He has to find his line, has to hit every mark perfectly as he runs a little bit wide there through turn 1. Moric, if he wants to win this championship, he's got to get on it and get on it early.
And he knows that Paul Ilbrink only makes mistakes when he is pressured. He is very much a driver when he's out on his own at the front and over a second clear, he will not be seen again. That's the sort of driver he is. He works brilliantly over a hot lap scenario, but when you put him into a fight and a battle, he'll be in trouble. And he goes off. He goes off. And he's going to struggle to keep it in a straight line. He somehow keeps it alive, but Moric leads. Herkstra in second, and Ilbrink uses another one of those 9 lives. He's feline-like the way he saves vehicles.
Yeah, that was exactly what you were talking about. He makes mistakes when he's under pressure. Cold tires as well are going to be affecting here on lap 2. May have drove it in just a little bit too hard there. And as I said, high-speed corners in a high technical section means a high risk for mistakes. You just saw it right there with Ilbrink. Championship advantage, Moric.
It certainly is now, and of course Shivlak there, turn 6 where the corner issue was made. Such a powerful corner. You're always trying to carry as much as you can through there. Ilbrink just pushed a little bit too hard, and suddenly Danny Herkstra finds himself in the Tulip racing car in a scrap for this second position. Out of the race then, Manuel Hoyer. Manuel Domingo is going to get back out on circuit here, and that will all but guarantee the points that are available at this stage then for the team's championship. That will go to the Radicals Online team, side by side, right in the back of the pack as well, because that is Leonardo Fabian going at it with Matt Quinn. Quinn holding through and gaining the place, moving back up into 8.
Yep, and we just showed the replay on board of Manuel Hoyer of what happened going into turn 3. And these guys, again, we were talking about it a lot last week, talking about Quinn and Maz, who are on your screen right now. Both Hammer Down and Rebellion have had quite a battle as far as team drivers are concerned. There's still a chance for, I believe it's Hammer Down, to take advantage and finish ahead of Rebellion in this season.
And that, of course, we'll keep an eye out on the longer that this one all goes on out on track. But they've got a long time to try and get those points. Moric currently is your champion as things stands if it were to finish like this. And there is trouble for Dave Guild slightly going
off
those corners as he struggles.
Yep, and Danny Hoekstra went off right there in between the penultimate and the final corner. That's going to give second place back to Paul Ilbrink. And I misspoke, so I do apologize. Hammer Down pretty comfortably sitting in 3rd position in the standings. They can, however, lose that spot to Tulip Racing, was what I was thinking. And Rebellion and Tulip Racing UK are the 2 that could flip-flop, so not Hammer Down and Rebellion.
Yes, so Danny Herkstra struggle then. Just gets on the outside curve coming out of Kumo corner there, and it's very easy to go full Tony Hawk spec through there because you are very reliant on the fact that there is a very low ground clearance in these Formula Renault 3.5s. Effectively, you'll be riding on the plank of wood that is underneath the vehicles, which effectively creates the ground clearance, and it's what measures ground clearance. That would be the reason why you struggle and you slide if you go a little bit too far wide at that section of road. It now puts Ilbrink back into 2nd position, but Ilbrink now knows he still needs to make one overtake to win this championship, and it's against his main rival, but he's got to get there first if he wants to go and pick it up.
Yeah, and for Ilbrink, again, he was the champion last year, and boy, he cuts that one really close. Really do not want to get on the gas while you're in the grass going through there. I love this section of racetrack. It's so quick. It's so sweeping. You really need to get a good run through here if you want a good run down this straightaway. And boy, I'll tell you, Ilbrink knows this racetrack. Again, it's his home racetrack. Same thing with Danny Hoekstra behind him. I wouldn't count Ilbrink out just yet, but Moric can be very difficult to pass when he wants to be.
He certainly can, and Lubomir Moric will be hoping that he doesn't need to be put into a position where he's worrying about the overtake. He just needs to worry about where he is in this race and how far forward he can go. And look, the gap's starting to open up a little bit here around this place. You've got Lubomir Moric who leads, Paul Ilbrink 2nd, Herkstra is 3rd, Keeman there in 4th position, still only a second back of the pack. Then you got Dave Guild quietly in 5th place and Javier Torres in 6th position. Marcellus Bruning as well, lives in America but is Dutch by nature, having a very good run. He's up 5 places already. He's into 7th.
Yep, and that blue number 63, the blue and white number 63 right there going up the hill. And I wanted to highlight something else. As these guys go down this wide sweeping corner, look at how much grass is getting kicked up right there. That's guys running off. If somebody gets out just a little bit too wide going through there, that could be the end of days for them, as it is really, really close, and it's a really fast part of this racetrack.
Certainly is a quick part of the track, and every single measure and factor as you go through, you have to be very cautious with the way that you go around this Zandvoort circuit. This is very much a tightrope circuit that everyone is going to be trying to work through. Hoekstra, though, in third position. Keep in mind, has not fallen. Oh, well, he's just about now. Goes straight on at the Hugenholz and into the wall, into the tyres on the outside. I think he's got away with that one potentially. It comes through, and it's a freebie for IM Keenan, but really not ideal for the Tulip Racing driver there of Danny Hoekstra, who was nicely working in third place. The mistake there cost him a place and maybe some damage to that right front suspension.
Didn't hit too hard, and I'm looking. It's hard to find it. It's hard to find a straightaway on this racetrack when you really need one. You can see the wing is bent a little bit on that right front, but we'll get a chance to see here as we're on board with him here if that car is tracking straight. And boy, it looks like he really got away with one there, as it looks to be tracking straight on.
Certainly does. So very much Danny Hoekstra gets away with one then. With that, remains in fourth position, but it has promoted IM Keenan then up onto the podium, the privateer champion this season. One win to his name at Long Beach. Battle right down in the back of the pack for 10th and 11th position. That will be for Jeff Browning versus Christoph Boozy here, and the mistake comes in early from one Mr. Jeff Browning, but at such a point in the middle of the corner, he tries to go for it, but he does almost decide to let off. He had no power on that run, and he runs wide.
Oh, there he goes.
Spins it. So Jeff Browning, it's a case of mistake after mistake, and that's how easy it can all go wrong around this place.
Yep, got put under a lot of pressure by Christoph Boozy, and that's exactly all it took. Just running wide in one corner, and that's, you make one mistake in one corner, and you're trying to recover, and it just compiles on you sometimes. But boy, that 63, that's a hard hit for him. Not necessarily as far as the wall goes, but mentally that could be a very hard hit.
Well, it's just a case, really, when you're being aggressive and you're having to defend around here, Frank, that it's all about that iRacing tyre model that comes into play, because the moment you start locking up a little bit and wearing out that tyre and almost flat spotting, so to speak. You don't actually flat spot here in iRacing, but effectively as close to as you can. This is really a place where you do not want to be heating up those tires, because then you've got no grip when it comes to the next corners. And we saw that in the way that he was driving around the circuit. He was struggling to put that rear and get that planted. And it's even worse because Marcellus Bruning's just done exactly the same thing, same corner.
Yeah, and that is the key, especially around a track that is as technical as this. You do not want to light up those rear tires, because the second you do, you lose all corner exit speed. Corner entry becomes a little bit slower, as I think Domingo has gone off again just behind that, or he either pulled off and stopped. But
that is a retirement. He's pulled off to the side of the road and called it a day. Was in 12th position on the road, and has decided, you know what, it's not worth my time at this stage. I know that the points are already going to be there. I'm not going to have any fun racing around one lap down. Not going to see anyone else for the rest of the race. So that is a retirement then for Manuel Domingo, and it's something that we have seen quite frequently over the course of this season from him. And that's a driver, really, Frank, who has been on the wrong side of luck in the second half of the season, was right up there fighting for the championship until the results decided they didn't want to go his way.
Yeah, that, and also think, going back to the race at Watkins Glen, which I think was round 2 of the season, bottomed out twice coming out of pit road. Once just coming off his stop, and a second time coming off a penalty stop. And that one really was the start of the downfall. He's had a couple of good races here and there, has Domingo, but thinking back all the way to that Watkins Glen race, that was really the first sign of major trouble for him.
Gap at the front then is 2.9 seconds for Lubomir Moric. It has come down by 0.2 over the course of that last lap. Moric in the 66 leads this one from Paul Ilbrink, with IM Keenan third and Danny Hoekstra in fourth position then. Tops 4 being split by 6 seconds out there on track. The key to this race, though, is going to be on strategy and when is the right time to come in, because, of course, they can run probably, I would say, in this race, Frank, quite nicely to about lap 30. So that gives them maybe 12 laps of thinking about when they want to decide to go out there and make things happen, and really an 18-lap window when they can feasibly come in and make a stop.
And that's going to turn into how much fuel do you put in this race car. You can really bog yourself down if you put too much fuel into it. You want to get it right on that limit of can I make it and can I not, and hopefully try to save a little bit to make that car as light as possible. Moric set the fastest lap of the race a couple of laps ago, and Ilbrink hasn't quite topped him yet, but has certainly responded. He was half a tenth quicker there on that lap. So Ilbrink is pulling back slowly but surely here on Moric after his mistake and then getting caught up behind Hoekstra's mistake.
That's all he's got to do. It's foot forward. It's lap after lap. You have to put the work in, and Ilbrink now needs to go into his form and his method of keeping himself honest in terms of the race that he's got available, as Christophe Bouzy off the road and into the wall. Ooh. And is speared into the wall. That will be a retirement then for him, as he finds himself pretty much speared into the Armco barriers, and he was fighting with Leonardo Fabian, couldn't get near enough to make the move, and it's Kumo corner once again that catches out into Arie Luyendyk on the outside, and it's just a case of straight on.
Yeah, just caught a little bit too much of the grass on the outside, and that's what sent him straight. And again, that grass, if I remember correctly, that grass in the current form of this racetrack is not there. It's a concrete wall that's right on the edge of what is now a high banked corner at the back end of the circuit. So that's a case of maybe that wouldn't have happened if this track was up to date.
Well, it's not just a concrete wall, Frank. It is actually one of those heavily pioneered safer barriers up there over on that banking up the top. So a bit of NASCAR elements coming into road racing. This is one of the few tracks that tries to pioneer itself and take a lot of influence from oval racing in the United States of America. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people have this as one of their cult favorite circuits.
Yep, and it won me over as well, I must say.
Yep, it certainly did, Frank. But now we find ourselves in the middle part of the race. The opening laps have been put in, but now these drivers will be looking at what they need to do. They need to focus on a couple of things. How much fuel are they burning per lap is the first thing. And secondly, how are they using their tires, and how aggressively are they turning around a very high downforce circuit? Because it's high downforce, it means that you're actually using the tires a little bit more, because you're trying to put a lot more of those aerodynamic forces into the car to make it turn.
Yeah, and essentially scrubbing off those tires, which is a lot worse during these flat corners like what you're going to see here as Moric goes through. The bank corners really do help with that, and there are quite a bit of cambered corners around here that help with the tire wear, but you're right. The fast technical second sector, those are a lot of flat corners, a lot of high lateral load, which is going to scrub those tires like a cheese grater. We also saw a replay of Danny Hoekstra essentially doing the same thing that Christophe Bouzy just did, but was able to keep it somewhat under control and not lose too much time to Ian Keenan.
Yeah, that was the key. Went through the penultimate corner. He's already gone off once, and he got it all shades of sideways there in the Tulip racing car, but was able to keep the car planted on the island. So no real cause for concern in terms of that. Is able to keep this one going in this race. We've had 4 retirements then from your Dutch Grand Prix here at Zandvoort here, the final round of the championship. Manuel Hoyer went out on the opening laps along with Mark Ponick, who got caught up in the accident at the Hugenholz corner, turn 3. Manuel Domingo out of the race after pulling it over to one side, knowing he can't really influence anything more. And then Christophe Bouzy, we saw, find himself into the Armco barriers out of this race. That brings it down to 10 drivers remaining here in this Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort, the last of which is Jeff Browning, 55 seconds adrift at the moment in this field. But there are still those battles. Marcellus Bruning having to be a little bit cautious about the gap to Matt Quinn. That's at 4.5 seconds at this moment in time. Javier Torres might have just had a really good opportunity to attack Dave Guild, who I think has made a huge mistake out there on track somewhere. He's really dropping time, and it looks like Dave Guild is really struggling to keep it pointed.
Yeah, we're going to take a look back here, and we're going to see what happened with the Tulip Racing UK, number 98 of Guild. Just trying to get onto that straightaway as quickly as he possibly can and just lit the back tires up and kicked the back end around. Didn't go all the way around, but certainly moved him right to the front wing of Javier Torres.
I'll tell you what, he's done that 2 laps in a row now, and he's really not comfortable here, is Dave Guild. He's really, really struggling with those rear tyres and how to keep them planted on that phase of acceleration. The thing that makes this circuit a really difficult challenge to go and make things happen, Frank, is the fact that Zandvoort is all about corners that are not tight. They are very open and expansive corners, which always rely on you putting down the power in the mid part to the late part of the corner, and you are not fully guaranteed to get through and get comfortably down on the power as you're always turning.
No, absolutely not. And especially if you do light the rear tires up and we're coming up, this is the corner where he made that mistake. Especially if, as you mentioned before, if you have hot tires, hot rear tires, you're just going to spin those things right up. You need to be really careful, and you learned this in oval racing. You need to be really careful, especially as we get later on into the run, getting on the power, feeding power back into the race car to get you off of the corner. Something that oval racing, at least in this capacity, not necessarily a skill you develop. In oval racing you do. They're really needed around here.
Absolutely, and it's all about just trying to make sure that you are modulating the throttle as well as you possibly can in this race. This is the battle for 5th place at the moment out on screen, and Javier Torres here, who's up 2 places, as is Dave Gill, just trying to take this one quietly, just work away through the laps and just tick them off one at a time. And probably I think these 2 drivers will be thinking about waiting until the pit stop window here. We're lap 14 of 42, half distance then in about 7 laps or so in terms of this race, 6.5 with the way that they're driving around. But Javier Torres, someone who is just very quietly picking up results this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, pardon me, this is, wow. Pardon me. Yeah, this is also very key for Guild as well, because as we had mentioned, the team championship standings earlier on, Tulip Racing trying to jump Rebellion Racing, only 8 points separating those 2. So Guild needs to keep this position over Javier Torres if he wants to get that spot.
Yeah, and well, now you're starting to see it. Dave Guild is starting to put the power down through a couple of corners and pull away again from Javier Torres. So he'll be hoping that he doesn't find that mistake in the not too distant future. Some good racing going on, but the key, of course, in this race is those battles between Lubomir Moric and Paul Ilbrink. Every time I go and look at Lubomir Moric, he's just the epitome of consistency. His last, I would say, 5 laps have been within a range of about 0.2 of a second. He's been wonderfully working through. The big difference maker, though, is that Paul Ilbrink just set the fastest lap of the race that last time by on a 1:22.545.
Yep, and just took a half a second out of Moric's time in that Moric's lead in that last lap. It looks as though Moric is starting to pull it away again, just ever so slightly. But yeah, Ilbrink laid down an absolute flyer last time through, and Moric has found his groove. He's hitting his marks, and you're right, just only a couple of tenths separating his lap times.
And it's those tenths that really do make the difference here. And there's also going to be a case for both of these drivers about preparation for this sort of race. Of course, because of US daylight savings times, this race has been moved effectively an hour forward from where it would normally be for most Europeans. So that puts a very different perspective onto how these drivers need to prepare for this race, because they have effectively lost an hour from their race day.
And as Americans, we apologize for that, for not syncing our stupid daylight savings time up with the rest of the world.
Oh, it's absolutely fine. I'm sure nobody actually in the world syncs their daylight saving times up properly. I know Australia's 2 weeks different from the United Kingdom, and that's different from America, and that's different from somewhere else. And it's all very confusing. It's actually worse for your health, actually, having daylight savings. It would all be very nice if there were no daylight savings at all. Ramble over. Ilbrink still trying to chase down Ian Keeman then in 3rd position. at this moment in time, and it's all about survival at the moment, and that's what we're seeing here from like Marcellus Bruning in 7th position and Matt Quinn in 8th place. They're running very similar lap times at the moment, not really dealing with too much in terms of difficulties. They're split by around 5 seconds.
Yeah, no, they're not. Bruning and Quinn running very, very close, as you said, just 0.2 quicker was Bruning on that last lap, a 24 dead to a 24-2 between Bruning and Quinn last time around. And right now, this is, I believe, the second or third closest battle on the racetrack. Is Guild, the battle we were watching before between Guild and Taurus, that's opened up to 2 seconds now.
It certainly has, and that is just a testament to how Dave Guild is running, and he's running some pretty quick lap times to break away. He's just put a 22.9 down on the board, which is quicker than the two, or actually all drivers except Lubomir Moric. It was a horrible lap, actually, from Paul Ilbrink. He just put a 23.6 down on the board, which he has no reason to be happy about because he very nearly lost it coming out of turn number 9, the former Vodafone corner. Back end steps out and he's able to gather it up without too many dramas, but it costs an entire second. He's now 4 seconds back.
Yeah, and that's those little mistakes, and I think he's starting to realize now that that mistake that he made earlier might have just cost him this championship, because Moric has been about as consistent as you could possibly ask for between the two drivers. Ilbrink, I think, now has to focus. He gets a little loose there. Back end stepping out, coming through there. He's got to start setting himself up to where, okay, I can't beat him on the racetrack on pace alone like I could last week or 2 weeks ago at Interlagos. I have to start thinking about positioning myself to where I can jump him in the pit stop.
Well, you're asking a miracle right now of Paul Ilbrink unless you tell him to go and fuel save like there is no tomorrow, get a massive underfill of 5 seconds, and then all of a sudden hold up Lubomir Moric for love and money and lift and coast 300 meters into every corner. I don't see how Paul Ilbrink wins from here.
Yeah, but I'm asking a miracle of him, but it's a miracle is what he needs right now if he wants to win the championship. Not necessarily saying he needs to stay out to win this race and try to save enough fuel to run. As boy, he makes another big mistake through there. Boy, those are the ones that stop your heart for a second, because you think it's all over. And Ilbrink right now he's pushing a little too hard. That's all these mistakes are. He's pushing too hard.
He's off the road again.
Yes,
and he's very nearly spun it, nearly once, twice, able to keep it on. I am Keeman. Takes the place, moves up into second position. That is the moment you get frustrated. You know you've lost a little bit of time, so you try and compensate and go even quicker through different corners. Then you make more mistakes and you compound the error upon compounding the error. And then when you get to the very end of it, that's it. It's all trouble and it's all in a world of hurt. Ilbrink will be really hurting. We'll move back to the inside on I Am Keeman to pick up second place once again. But now you get to see that gap up to 8 seconds if you're Lubomir Moric. That is such a psychological advantage as the move is made.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and that's exactly what I was talking about before. Mistakes compounding. You make one mistake, then you try to get it back, and another mistake, another mistake, and another mistake. But it just goes to show how great a driver Paul Ilbrink is. A majority of the drivers in this field, and I think in this booth as well, that car would have been completely gone, ball game, game over. He only lost one position, got it right back. So that's the car control that Ilbrink has is astonishing.
But he has to be careful about another thing in this race, Frank, and that is those off-track instant points. If you pick up 10 of them in this series, it's a drive-through penalty. And 10, even for the most veteran of sim racers, is incredibly difficult over the course of an hour to avoid.
Especially around this track, too, where off-tracks are pretty common. And that's not just 10 off-track points. That's car collision. That's loss of control. So he might have had an off there. He might have had a car control. That's 3 X's right there. He's almost half done. We know he's had a couple of other offs, so give him another 2 or 3. He's got somewhere in the realm of maybe between 3 and 5 X's to play with. We're just getting to halfway into this race.
Exactly, so that's where it starts to hurt more and more if you're Paul Ilbrink and just trying to push a little bit too hard. Certainly it hurts. Jeff Browning then is down in pit lane at the moment. He is the first driver to go and make a stop in this race from very back of the field in 10th position. So Jeff Browning hoping to just get a finish in this one. He's one lap down right now after that stop and should be one lap down when Lubomir Moric decides it's his time to go and make his stop.
And also one lap down because of the spin that we saw going into the final corner. I believe that's Mark Brunning coming up behind him. It is in the number 61 for Tulip Racing. As Browning is pretty much cutting this race in half. So not too bad a strategy for Browning, as I think Ilbrink's gone off again. He's about to lose it again.
He is, and he saved it again. And once more, it is turn 9, which is proving to be the big hurting point for Paul Ilbrink. Just takes a little bit too much power, tries to attack on the exit, gets out on the grass, and then he's fighting the slip diffs then for a chance to put the power back down. He gathers it up again, but Paul Ilbrink, I think, is wishing that this was a rallycross race, or rather than a race in a Formula Renault 3.5, because he's all over the track at every opportunity.
That was an identical incident to what happened to him a lap prior. So Ilbrink, you're right, trying to push as hard as he can to try to make up that ground. He sees this championship slipping away now. This could be time to do something, pardon the pun, radical. Maybe come in now, try to get himself into clean racetrack to where he can try to gain as much time back as he possibly can on Moric, who's going to try to pit as late as possible.
This is the surprising thing about this Paul Ilbrink who's driving right now. You expect Paul Ilbrink, with the number of years that he has under his belt, he's been a sim racer since the mid-2000s. He is someone who has been in and around this for over 15 years. You do not expect Paul Ilbrink to make this amount of mistakes, this level of mistakes, time and time again. You'd expect him, with the veteran's mindset that he has, to be calm and collective and just know what he needs to do, drive at 97, 98%. But he knows he needs to be aggressive, and he's hitting 101 too much. He needs to dial back.
When you're racing for a championship, yes, of course that experience helps you, but that does not mean that you're immune to making some of the mistakes that we've seen Paul Ilbrink make over the course of this race. He's a guy battling for a championship, and that's always going to make you push a little bit harder than you probably know that you should. So, yes, it is great to have that experience, but that doesn't mean you're not going to make a mistake when the pressure is cranked up to 100.
Exactly, and that is the key here for Paul Ilbrink. He started on pole position. He is down in 3rd place at the moment, and just trying to make sure that he can get it home first and foremost. And secondly, he'll be hoping that Lubomir Moric runs into troubles somewhere in the race, if there's lap traffic or if there's anything else where he can make a mistake. But Moric, and the way that he has been driving the Spanish-based outfit, that positive sim racing machine, as I am Keenan, we just saw on screen about half a lap ago, made a big lock-up through the Hugenholz corner. Moric has just been driving well within his means. He's just been planting the car down. He's got a stable setup underneath him, and all he needs to do is drive. He was given the opportunity to lead the race, and he's not looked back. 9 seconds down the road from I am Keenan and Paul Ilbrink. That's not something to shake a stick at.
No, and this is exactly the race that he needed. Not a lot of pressure from behind. Has done what he needed to do in order to get up to the lead and stay there. And as we had mentioned at the top of the broadcast, that drop week is what played really big into his hands. We were expecting him to be down 4 after the Brazilian Grand Prix going into this race. He dropped the race that he missed, which put him up 4. So a complete swap for Moric compared to what we thought the situation he was going to be in. And then I asked you the question, who would have thought missing a race was going to give you a championship?
Who would have thought, indeed? But that's the reason why drop rounds can be very, very fickle in the way that you go. If you only count your best X results, you always have to be very, very quick at the tracks you do race at to go and make all of your results happen the way that you need to. Still only one taker has gone down onto the lane. We have 10 drivers remaining in this race. 4 retirements early on. Hoyer, Ponick, Domingo, and Boozy all finding themselves into troubles early on. Matt Quinn currently in 8th position right now, is 47 seconds adrift of your race leader Lubomir Moric, but finds himself in a pretty strong position. But Paul Ilbrink here, well, give him everything he's got. He's definitely not giving up against Ian Keeman. He'll want to get back through for the second time in this race.
Yeah, he is right back. It's taken him a couple of laps this time, I think, just to try to cool the tires down and not push as hard. It's taken him a couple of laps, but Keeman now coming under pressure. Looks like he's just far enough ahead. And Ilbrink won't make a move to the inside going into turn 1. Tries to get the straight line run coming off the top, and a big block there from I.M. Keeman, who we've seen. He's not afraid to throw a block if he feels as though he needs to, and that was a big one right there.
Yeah, that was certainly a big block as Javier Torres comes into the pits then at the end of lap 23. That was a case of Keeman just dictating line through turn number 1. Not much that Paul Ilbrink can do about that. I.M. Keeman just took his natural racing line. He was late to the curb, and Ilbrink, who thought he had road on the outside, just very much had no road on the outside. Torres out of the pits and away, then funnels out just behind Matt Quinn. So his stop then, the first real stop that we've seen that actually could influence something in terms of his race with Dave Guild.
Yeah, I think you said that perfectly. That was a natural block of just Keeman taking a natural line and not him doing anything extra to impede Ilbrink. But I think both of those drivers, it didn't look like it, and we couldn't quite see with that camera angle because of the peak of the hill. It looked like both of those guys might have gone off at the top of that hill there. Both of them able to keep it on, and now here comes Ilbrink into the lane. And he hits the wall.
Oh, not like that. Pull into the wall there as he tries to drive it into the pits. So aggressive he goes, tags it hard. How much damage does he have coming in? I think he may have just got away with that, with the way that he hit it, because he hit rev limiter or pit limiter going through, glanced off against the wall, but we will see how much damage that has done. And he has had to change the front wing, which did get crumpled up, so he'll lose probably about 3, 4, 5 seconds then in the Radicals car, and he finds himself behind Danny Herkstra on track. Dave Guild has come in to cover off the move then of Javier Torres, and will come out just alongside Jeff Browning, who's a lap down, so stays ahead of where he needs to as Bruning now comes in.
Boy, and you had mentioned how tight that pit road entry is, and that's exactly Ilbrink trying to make up as much time as he possibly can, and that's what kills him right there. He did have to replace the wing. That's an extra 5 seconds added to his pit stop. That's a 5 seconds that he really could not afford to lose.
Certainly couldn't, and that's the key. 5 seconds, bang, into the wall he went. And it was all a case then, when you're driving around a very tight pit entry like this one at Zandvoort, you have to be able to slow down. But the difficulty is you're at one of the fastest points on the circuit, 240 Ks, and you've got to slow it down, and you've got to do 2 turns to get yourself in at that marker cone. It's such a tough pit entry. It's
almost a 90-degree pit entry. It's so narrow and so tight going in there that if you try to take any speed, it's really difficult. You have to slow down quite a bit just to make pit entry here, let alone make the timing line.
And of course, when you do have all of that gets put into the mix, it can very easily turn around and become sour so very quickly. But lap 26 for Lubomir Moric, he is clear and away by 9.5 seconds right now, and even more so over I.M. Keeman here. And we are starting to see here how these drivers are maybe just pushing a bit more. Matt Quinn, though, has lost himself a bit of time then to Dave Guild. He wants to try and get that back, and Torres is doing quite all right as well.
Yeah, Leonardo Maz is off there going into turn 10, just clips the rear of the car on that extended curb to keep you from taking too much curb, and noses it into the wall going into 11. Doesn't look like too much front end damage on that Rebellion Racing number 31 for Maz, but he's going to bring it into the pits now.
Yeah, it's the front left which is crumpled up, and it's a very, very awkward hit that he had there at that section. It's just a case of getting a little bit of air underneath the car. And then, oh my goodness, Ilbrink's had another moment. And this one heading into the final corner.
He's still...
It goes through, and again he saves it.
Boy, he's lucky that these are not counting as car control issues. And I was starting to think that this might be a blessing in disguise for him, because he doesn't have to, clips the curb at the end of one. He's pressing too hard right now, and I thought that if he got out in clean air, nobody pressuring from in front, nobody pressuring behind, he might be able to simmer down and try to at least put some corners together. Turns out to be just the opposite. He's making more mistakes now than he was before.
Certainly is. It's almost like he's trying to wrestle an octopus instead of sim race at this moment in time. The amount he's fighting against that Radicals Online Formula Renault 3.5. It is worth pointing out as well that just how difficult this final round is.
Oh, he's off completely now.
He's off again.
Boy, that's
off.
off.
Bigger this time. This is down then just after the Masters corner. In fact, the mistake was at the Masters corner. Gets out there in the grass and he's trying to slow it down, goes over that service road and is able to keep it out of the barriers. But Paul Ilbrink here, really, this is a sad end to a championship run, which has been so very good. We've only seen it once before, this level of struggles at a circuit. It was at Long Beach. He only scored 8 points that time. But Paul Ilbrink here, it's a case of diminishing returns, and I think he'll very soon be finding himself in the pits for a drive-through.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised at all, because that's off track. That could also be counted as a loss of car control. So that's 3 X's right there. How many more does he have to give at this point? And we're going to take a look at it again here. What started that? Just too wide, pushing too hard, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. A very sad end to what we thought was going to be a wonderful title fight here tonight.
Well, Paul Ilbrink knows that all hope's gone. He's actually behind Dave Guild now on the road, so he's 5th place in this race on track, with Keeman and Moric and Hoekstra yet to come down in. In comes I.M. Keeman then to make the stop, as does the race leader Lubomir Moric. Danny Hoekstra also comes in then on lap 28 of 42. There will be 14 laps next time Moric crosses the start-finish line to end this race out. So those are the stops coming in, and Paul Ilbrink's going to be absolutely nowhere, and already out and away goes Lubomir Moric, who has just been serene over the course of this one so far.
Yeah, we apologize for the pit stop graphic there behind the iRacing graphic that needs to be there. Just tried to fix it, and unfortunately it didn't work as well as I had planned. But you're right, Moric, once he got that lead off of Ilbrink's first mistake, which seems like ages ago at this point, I mean, that was it. That was all the ticket he needed, and he has been flying right now, as smooth as silk. You said it perfectly.
Tell you what, we've got a battle here for 9th and 10th place, because with the issues that Leonardo Fabian has had, he finds himself now with Jeff Browning in a scrap then for those final positions in this race of those who are running. They've got lap traffic trying to get through behind in terms of Javier Torres, who wants that 6th position to maintain. But this is very awkward right now for all 3 of them as they try and figure out a way to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Torres as well, he's trying to keep that gap close to the driver in front of him. So that's which is Ilbrink, and that's certainly being stuck behind 2 lap cars who are in a race of their own as he's going to get around Jeff Browning now. This isn't helping him either.
No, it's certainly not, and that's the key also here. Jeff Browning will be hoping he can follow as quickly as he possibly can behind one Mr. Javier Torres, but I think he's left a little bit too much of a gap, because now you start hemorrhaging that time. It's also a case of you want to use the driver in front of you as
Guild's off big.
Possible.
Final corner, I believe.
Wow.
Yep, it was. Coming off the final corner.
It's so easy to do. Final corner, mistakes aplenty can come into play. And, well, we see it once again. Dave Guild now finds himself in all sorts of trouble. He just goes straight on at that penultimate corner, gets on the curb, can't get it turned, and effectively at that point, you are a passenger through that section, and Dave Guild now finds himself in the pits for a second time, and this one could be fatal in terms of the way that he's wanting. The front wings crumpled up. They'll be certainly hoping there's no damage to the suspension. If there is, his day's done. There's no way of repairing that one.
Christoph Boozy fell victim to the same exact thing. I believe Ilbrink's gone off there as well. Domingo might have had an off there after his first lap incident. So that's been a dangerous corner here tonight.
Absolutely. You've got no margin for error coming out to the final corner, and that could mean that we are down to 9 runners in this race, led by Lubomir Moric, who is 11 seconds down the road from IM Keenan in second position overall. He'll be just checking off those laps, checking off every corner one at a time to get himself home, because he knows that it's all about this. Now, Danny Hoekstra is back in the pits here. So this, I would assume, being his second stop, would be for either a speeding infringement, as he will stop in his box, and I think it may have been a speeding infringement that's caught Danny Hoekstra out.
No, because he's up on the jack stands, so this might be. Well, now he's stopped. This could be a penalty for X limit.
Very easily could, and that is a real shame for Danny Hoekstra and the Tulip Racing team, because it's going to drop him now behind Marcellus Bruning as there's someone straight on at the Hugenholz corner. That's Leonardo Fabian around for a spin then, who has got it all wrong through turn 2.
Oh, and he's beached himself.
He's actually fighting with Javier Torres, who was lap traffic, and he's gone off.
Yep, Maz has beached himself now. He's high centered on that plank and is going to have to tow it back to pit road.
Yeah, that's going to hurt. You can see Danny Hoekstra is there in the pits, waiting only now as he managed to get himself going, and that's going to cost him almost an entire lap in terms of that penalty, because that's Lubomir Moric just behind him, who wants to put him a lap down. What a shame for Danny Hoekstra, was on for a podium, and this completely shakes things up once again. So Moric leads, Keenan second. It will now be Paul Ilbrink back into third position. We also did just catch that replay then of Leonardo Fabian trying to have a battle, and well, it's not ideal or wise, so to speak, there, really, to go and battle with drivers who are a lap ahead of you.
A lap ahead, a teammate who's trying to get you ahead of Tulip Racing UK in the team championship in the final round. That, and he also beached himself with the way he tried to flick spin it coming off of the grass. He sort of drove into that himself, so that wasn't an issue of, oh, his car came to a halt here. He kind of did that one to himself.
He certainly did. Dave Guild is now confirmed as a retirement then from this race, which makes 5 confirmed retirements then out there overall, which brings the field down to 9 drivers. Of course, having to take a tow, Leonardo Fabian's going to be down in the pits for a couple minutes, but will be allowed to go back out on circuit then once that towing time has finished itself off. But really, this is a race of drivers just trying to make it home here around this circuit. Lubomir Moric is just the most comfortable driver in, and second time into the pits now for Jeff Browning. I would assume that's for exactly the same reason that's gone and caught out the likes of, say, for example, Danny Hoekstra.
Yeah, and I'm stunned that Ilbrink hasn't gotten a penalty yet. Now, that looked to be a standard stop for Browning. Might have had a wing fix.
Yeah.
But that appeared to be a standard stop. Again, I'm surprised that Ilbrink has not gotten an off-track penalty yet. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it would have been for the front wing then, Jeff Browning, who that front left of the wing looked absolutely crumpled to every which way, and decided, you know what, I can't deal with that anymore. I need a new wing. I need to go back out and race again properly and give myself an opportunity. He doesn't have anything to lose by pitting, because of the fact he is in 8th place and is 1 lap down already. Danny Hoekstra is the next car in front of him in 7th position. So not really much that you can say about that then in the late stages of this one. But really, this is a race that has come down to a very, very important factor, and that is consistency. And it's the consistency of laps, consistency of driving, consistency of line, which Lubomir Moric has hit over and over again, which nobody else in this race, I think, has come anywhere near to.
There's positive consistency and then there's negative consistency, and both Moric and Ilbrink have had consistency, and Moric has been consistently good, and Ilbrink, unfortunately, has been consistently making mistakes. However, it's not a complete loss for Radicals. Of course, you want to win the championship, but that's a big moment. That's Maz right in front of the race leader.
Just out of the pits as well. He's literally come out over those last couple of seconds, let through Danny Herkstra, saw Lubomir Moric behind, tries to go through the Hugenholz on cold tyres. He gets too much curb, and he spread eagles sideways across, leaves just enough room for Lubomir Moric. But if that's not a wake-up call for the championship, I don't know what is.
Yeah, because that could have all been lost right there. I mean, that's how quick it can go away right there. Just one guy making a simple mistake that you're not expecting. Good on Moric. It's a slow corner anyway, but that's right around the time you're going to start getting back on the power. Very good by Moric not to just run right into the back of him.
Very easy to run right into the back of someone, and I'm sure every driver now will be on a clock and a timer here, trying to make sure they can get themselves over and home here in this race. So that's something worth keeping in mind as they continue on. Moric will still lead, but that gap is now down to 9 seconds from the 12 seconds that it was earlier on. He'll just try and settle back into that rhythm, but that's the sort of thing that actually can really take you out of that rhythm, can really take you out of that place of consistency. And Moric has got to just dial himself back in again, because he's lap 35 and 42. There's only 8 laps remaining here in the end of this season, and he's got this under lock and key by nearly half a minute.
Yep, and that's exactly right. One little jolt to the system can completely take you out of it. Just in the same way, say you're racing at Bristol in NASCAR, that's a very much a rhythm track, or Martinsville, same thing. It's a very rhythm-centric track. One mistake, one little bump, a caution could take you right out of that rhythm. It could take you forever to get it back. But right now, Moric doesn't look to have affected him too much. He appears to be right back online.
And Lubomir Moric straight back into a position. The Czech driver then is doing exactly what he needs to do then today. He just needs to finish this race and finish it in first position. He knows that if he finishes first, there's no way anybody is going to get by him in a very, very close championship. He's had days where he's not been the quickest. He's had days where he has been. And he knows that all of it culminates at this final round. Can you seal the deal? Can you get everything to work in your favor? And really, when you talk about this race, you talk about Danny Herkstra way down the order. Paul Ilbrink's a little bit down the order. You've got drivers who've had consistent runs but no pace, like Bruning and Quinn and Torres. You know, this has been a tough race here to try and get through. And with 14 drivers out there, 7 only on the leading lap, and then you've got 2 who are piloting 2 and 3 laps down respectively. You know, this circuit has shown its fangs today.
Yeah, this is not an easy racetrack to get around, and we showed it right from the very beginning of the broadcast. You need to be on point here. There's a lot of tight, winding sections. There's fast, technical sections. This is a very difficult track to nail down, and to nail it down consistently for 42 circuits. That's not an easy thing to do, as Ilbrink now might be starting to get into it. He set a purple 2nd sector and 4th sector as he's coming up on Maz and just punts him off, and there they go.
That's Ilbrink in the wall, and if there was going to be any doubt in terms of the way that he wanted this race to go, that will be the cherry on the cake for an incident with Leonardo Fabian. Fabian takes the toe to pit, and Paul Ilbrink, who was looking quick for a couple sectors, was starting to get up through, was not expecting that much of a change as he went on through Masters Corner, and ultimately that is where the race will pretty much be ending for him.
Done.
It's a completely mangled car. He's got a lot of wheel drift as he goes through. He's trying to bring the car back into the pit, but ultimately he's going to drop out of the podium. That's Javier Torres, who's just gone through up into 3rd position, and Paul Ilbrink's championship doesn't end in a blaze of glory. It ends pretty much with the wreckage and pretty much a horrible, horrible end.
It wasn't a blaze of glory. That's an inferno, as you can see just how right hand down he is. You're right, trying his best to work it back into pit road. And he'll get it there. But let's take a look again. We'll ride on board with Ilbrink during this. You can just see the difference in speed, and Maz is right in the middle of the racetrack. And that was just That's about as bad a luck as you could hope for.
I mean, you know, you've got lap track in front, you're closing, and it's a very tough section of road going through up at Shevlak, over through Masters Corner, in towards turn number 8 out on circuit, because you are really reliant on carrying that speed and not deviating from your line or your pace through that section of track. Otherwise, you're going around, you'll lose the downforce as you put it down. Paul Ilbrink's issue there is that Leonardo Fabian is just slower, and that's the only thing that he can do. There's no way that Leonardo Fabian can pull it over to the inside any quicker, either at that section, Frank, mainly because of the reason being that it's a corner which naturally leans over and curves, so you've got not much that you can do to really bring all of that pace back into a relative position.
Yep, and the natural flow of the corner as we're watching Lubomir Moric about to go into the same corner. That's a corner that when you take it, when you hit the apex in such a way that it naturally just throws you out to the other side of the racetrack. And unfortunately for Ilbrink, just caught Maz at the wrong spot, and Maz was right in the middle of the circuit, and that's just... It's racing is all it comes down to. Sometimes you're on the benefit of it, sometimes you're not. And Ilbrink, this is about the worst possible week that he could have been on the wrong end of it.
Absolutely, and it's his race all over and done with. Matt Quinn now moves up inside the top 5. Danny Herkstra, who's a lap down, will jump up into 6th position. We will have at this stage only 7 finishers here to the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort to finish off this season. It's been a really tough battle. The lead gap is coming down here between Moric and Keeman. It's down to 6.8 seconds right now, but Keeman's just a little bit out of laps right now if he wants to go and get a race victory. 6.8 seconds in about 4 laps to figure out how to get to the champions-elect at this stage. No matter now what happens, Lubomir Moric is going to be your champion.
Now, Moric is in a situation to where he's pretty much coasting right now. He knows it's over. He doesn't have to win this race anymore in order to win this championship. And that he also just had to pass Danny Hoekstra to put him a lap down. So Keeman is slowly catching up, but also Moric, there's a lot in reserve of that Positive Sim Racing number 66.
Exactly, and that's also going to be a very big key. In the way that Paul Ilbrink now has crashed out of this race, it is still going to be Radicals who take the team's championship. We know the Privateers championship already wrapped up for Keeman with a very, very strong result in the mid-stage of this one. But 3 laps now, Lubomir Moric has. It's Keeman in 2nd, and very quietly in 3rd position right now, you have Javier Torres, who has very much just gone about his race the way that anyone would. Just quietly make sure that you tick off the laps one after another. He's 30 seconds back of Keeman, and he's 20 seconds ahead of Marcellus Bruning. If that's not island sim racing, I don't know what is.
And you know what? With the way this race has gone, I wouldn't mind being stuck on an island a little bit. And this might also help Rebellion keep that position over Tulip Racing UK in the team standings, with Torres finishing on the podium. But just going back to the top 2 here really quick, this has been a positive year for both of them. Ilbrink won the championship with 126 points last year. Moric only scored 81. These guys are both flirting around the 140-point range. So there have been big advances for both of the drivers this year, and Moric, having won the preseason race at Imola, won the regular season race at Imola, won round 1 at Monza, he had a fantastic start to the season. Missed that Grand Prix, fortunately, because of the drop week. It's not going to affect him, and right now he's got to complete 2 more circuits of this racetrack, quite literally in the heart of enemy territory, to claim a championship in Season 2.
I'm sure Javier Alvarez, the boss at Positive Sim Racing, will have a smile wide on his face with the way that he is trying to make things happen as Keeman puts the lap on Danny Herkstra, who had a really good chance today to get the result that he wanted, but alas, the penalties have gone the other way for him out on circuit. There are 5 drivers on the leading lap. Herkstra 1 lap down, and Jeff Browning circulating at 2 laps down at this moment in time. So still, it's all about now just putting the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, I would say, at the end of this race, because this has been an emphatic season where every which way you've gone, it has been a close fight, at least in the early stages of a lot of these races, and there has been a case of form book shuffling and changing, working out who's going to be where, and not having an ideal or a guarantee on who's going to win on every round.
No, it has. It's been an absolutely phenomenal season. You think all the way back to the season opener back at Monza, it was Moric and Domingo coming together, going through the I believe it was the Della Roggia chicane on the final lap that won Moric the race. You had all of Domingo's troubles back at Watkins Glen, a fantastic race at Long Beach, so many close battles at Suzuka earlier on this year. This race it hasn't necessarily been great as far as close racing goes, but from all of the curveballs we've seen here tonight, this has probably been the best race of the season.
Through turn number 3 at the Hugenholz, up through the Hunsenrug, then turn 4 through Rob Slopemaker at turn 5, and now set up turn 6 at Shivlak corner for Lubomir Moric, who is driving away to another race victory here in the eFormula series through Masters Corner for the final time. And then you got turns 8 and 9 here, these two opposing diametric right and left, almost like you're running a sine wave through this circuit of the Dutch dunes. Now you've got this final back straight, which leads, of course, to the Hans Ernst corner before 2 more remain. 10 and 11 here, this right and left of Hans Ernst. And this, for Lubomir Moric, will be something very sweet. Everyone has struggled here today in cold conditions on the Dutch coast, as through Kumo and then Arie Luijendijk. This has been one which he can taste, and he can really, really bring home with a smile. Moric is the sole survivor and wins the eFormula Series Season 2.
And as we said, coming out of the Brazilian Grand Prix, when we thought he was going to be down points coming in to being up 4, completely different way of racing. Ilbrink gave him the lead on lap 3, and boy, he did not look back from there.
Absolutely not. It's been a wonderful drive by Lubomir Moric, and a champion's drive. When you need to deliver, it's when you need the clutch that Lubomir Moric has proved it today. He's proven it with Ian Keeman then in second. And what about Javier Torres making his way to the line? This will be a wonderful podium finish for him, and one which he, I am sure, will take and say, I want to build on this for next season and get a lot more out of my races, up 5 places from his starting position. This is going to be one which he definitely hopes he can pick up for and gain in the future. But we can get there with Matt Quinn coming to the line behind Marcellus Bruning. What a great race from him, up 8 places, by far and away the biggest mover in the field to finish in 4th position. We can get official classified results then for you up on your screen. Lubomir Moric, 58 minutes 40 seconds, does so by 8.5, sealing the championship, with Ian Keeman in second and Javier Torres in third. Marcellus Bruning finishes in 4th, with Matt Quinn in 5th place. Danny Herkstra will be the first of the drivers a lap down in 6th position, believe it or not, with Jeff Browning 2 laps down then in 7th place. Everyone from 7th on back fails to finish, including Paul Ilbrink, who had a very tumultuous time. He was wrestling the car over and over again. It was contact with Leonardo Fabian that ended both their races then at Masters Corner. Dave Guild finding troubles in the Tulip Racing UK car that all but secures their position in the team's championship with that retirement. And then Christoph Buzzi, Manuel Domingo, and then, of course, on the opening lap, Mark Ponick and Manuel Hoyer coming together after Domingo's issue there at the big left-hander of the Hugenholz. But Frank, really, what can you say about this for a championship? This goes down in terms of Lubomir Moric's step forward as the one thing that he wanted, needed, and delivered on.
It was an absolutely fantastic race and a flawless race, which is exactly what he needed. He knew that coming into a race where Ilbrink was going to be heavily favored, 1, because it's his home track, and 2, look at the way he's driven, not just last year, but this year as well. And he just, once he got that lead after Ilbrink's mistake, put his head down, got the drive on, did exactly everything he needed to do, and left it all on Ilbrink. And unfortunately, this time around, Ilbrink just was not equal to the task.
Absolutely. We'll hopefully get some driver interviews in the next couple of moments. The next season will be about a month from now in terms of getting things back sorted and started up once again. So a lot of work on the horizon for the team to all put everything together here with the eFormula series and with us here at the Esports Broadcasting Network. If you haven't had the opportunity to do so, you can like, you can share, and you can subscribe for more amazing content. Let's get a chance then to chat with our race victor then overall. We have this opportunity. Lubomir Moric joining us now. Lubomir, lap 2, you get the opportunity to get by with a mistake at Shivlak from Paul Ilbrink. From there, it's a case of you never really look back. You built a lead, you continue to build a lead, and nothing more could be said from that. You're champion.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. It's a big relief after this race. Yeah, the mistake from Paul on the lap number 2, it was like a holy water to me, and I knew that I just need to focus a couple of more laps, build a gap, and after a while, Paul will crack because the only thing he needed to do is to push and push. Because when he might get close to me, he's very good offensive driver. So yeah, it was battle. It was battle, even though our cars were not near to each other. And yeah, one little mistake will cost you a championship, or it will win it too.
Well, let's talk about the journey through the season because you started off at the pre-season race as the favourite for the championship challenge with a victory at Imola, and then every single race after that has been an extension of that, just trying to build results, find victories, find podium finishes. Do you feel that the level of consistency that you showed over the season, Lubomir, is what has spearheaded you to a title?
At the beginning of the season, I really was not aiming that high. It just built up during a couple of few first races that I thought to myself that I have a chance to fight, at least for the podium finishes. And also, basically, this is a top I can do with this car. After 2 years, when they released the car, I was dedicated to it. I spent more than 1,000 hours in the cockpit with this car. And basically, this was also the last race in Formula Renault 3.5 for me, as I think it's already time to move on.
So then it's a jump over towards where you're heading next. And what is the next step then for you, Lubomir? Is it a case of jumping up to, say, the MP430 or the IR01, or is it maybe a change of class from open wheel to closed?
Uh, Yeah, IR1 is a tempting choice, but I will take a time to think about my next steps as I already planned a racing vacation for like a year already. It was a really exhausting couple of last months, and yeah, I take my time. I think about what will be my next moves, but for a couple of next month, I won't be racing.
Well, that's a very, very wise decision. So I hope that you enjoy your sim racing vacation, so to speak. But before we let you go, it's a championship which you can put down to hard work and dedication and effort. Shout out sponsors, anyone you'd like to thank after picking up the title here at the final round at Zandvoort.
The first thanks will be to my biggest competitor in here, Paul Ilbrink. He really make all the races spicy. It was a really pleasure to race with him. So thank Paul Ilbrink, and also congrats to this second place in the championship. Then, of course, we need to think to our sponsors: Sure Real Timing, Sim Racing Cockpits, Set One Dashboard, Modem, and Studio 3T. And last but not least, the team Positive Sim Racing, as I believe without their help, it won't be even possible for me to be competitive on a such high level. So thank you, PSR. Thank you, Javier Alvarez, Tim Delisle, Greg Olson, and of course, Manuel Hoyer, my teammate. Thank you, guys.
Lubomir Moric then coming home with the race victory and the title. And Frank, I believe we found Danny Herkstra as well, who finished in about 6th place, 1 lap down.
Yeah, and typically what we like to do with this being the end of the season, and just we like to bring in the head admins to kind of bring a close to the season and just kind of give an overall wrap to this season and look ahead to next year. Danny, not the greatest race you had today, but I'm sure overall this season you really can't be too upset with all of the great action we saw this year in Season 2, and I'm sure looking ahead to Season 3.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, to start off, it was definitely not my best race. That's an understatement for sure. I mean, I screwed up at the beginning. I was struggling with a little less grip for my. I mean, I felt it was less grip than qualifying, so it took me some time to get in the rhythm, and then I had the pace, but yeah, I screwed up by taking off the pit limiter about 1 meter too soon. So that costed me a penalty and a stop and go 40 seconds. So that was over for me. I knew it right away. But yeah, I mean, the season was great. A lot of good battles on track, and especially now in the championship, fighting it off in the last race. And yeah, in this case, Lubomir, big congratulations to him. He has been second, I think, in the championship for a long time, and on the last race, he gets it. So, yeah, really good job. And Radicals as a team, I think, is still champion.
Yep.
So, congratulations to them too. So, and I'm Keeman, of course, for being the privateer champion. So, yeah, it was really nice to see everyone battle until the last race.
It was an absolutely fantastic season. Now, looking ahead towards Season 3, we're going to give you the floor to say whatever you want. As far as the next season, anyone you want to thank, anything you want to say about what you're looking forward to for next season, Danny, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Frank. No, I mean, I want to thank everyone who's part of this. I mean, you guys for broadcasting, you're doing a great job. I think I also want to thank my teammates, of course. I've been practicing on Zandvoort a lot, so maybe that's where the speed came from. And my dad for helping me out spotting during the races, and everyone, like I said, being part of this league and trying to make it bigger and better, and yeah, have some good races on track. And yeah, I hope we can have maybe an even greater season next one. So looking forward to it in 3 weeks on Road America.
Yeah, we're certainly looking forward to it as well. As Danny said, 3 weeks away at Road America. Danny, congratulations on a 6th place finish, but more importantly, congratulations on a fantastic Season 2.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for broadcasting, and see you in 3 weeks.
We will see you there as well. Jake?
User was moved out of your channel.
Yes, a fantastic season then, which was filled with all the ups and downs and all around. You heard it here first. 3 weeks from now, we'll be back with the eFormula series in the 3rd season that we have moving forward. It's the only place you can check it out here with the Esports Broadcasting Network. There's so much that happens up and down at every time slot as well with us at ESPN. We've got MX5s all the way to NASCAR and IndyCar as well. So make sure you check all that out on top of that. From everyone who's got it done behind the scenes, of course, of the eFormula series, from Frank Marchese, who's been alongside me. My name's been Jake Sperry. Lubomir Moric has the biggest smile as he will take a vacation and make sure that he can relax as much as he possibly can because it's his championship. He has beaten a legendary sim racer, the likes of Paul Ilbrink, and now it's about the next stage, the next way forward. We'll see you 3 weeks from now as Season 3 will come fully into view.